It's 5 o'clock. At this time, I will call the Perry City Council work session for Monday, January the 5th, 2026 to order. And Happy New Year to each and every one of you that are here this evening, and we thank you for your attendance. We do have a quorum this evening, and item 3 on the agenda are citizens with input. Are there any citizens here this evening that would like to address mayor and council at this time? Yes, if you would come forward and give us your name and address, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Gary Hunkins. I reside at 422 Stonegate Trail here in Perry, obviously. And I understand looking at the agenda for 25, 26 and the growth of Perry, and that is important. One question or concern I have, and I've tried to find it, is there a plan for there's plans out there for non-residential growth in the city? What I'm more inclined to be looking at is residential growth. Last year I attended quite a few Planning and Zoning Commission meetings, and the reason for that was where I'm off of 341 here, Saddle Creek, Kings Chapel, Arena Road, a lot of development applications. Some were approved and currently already in the works. But my concern is with the city, is there a plan that whomever looks at and go, okay, here's what we've got, our infrastructure within the city, obviously, I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence, but we know hospitals, schools, roadways, and things like that. But that also then correlates to, the funding. How is this funding if additional resources need to be placed for this growth? And like I said, in my area alone, the application, and I did the old Google map thing, and in less than a 2.5 mile radius, and this is specifically just for residential home applications and some that were approved, there was close to 600, if everyone was approved. Some of them were declined because not meeting certain ordinance or things or questions about traffic flow reports and all like that. But we were looking at and I did quick math, in the two right behind Saddle Creek and Kings Chapel, if they're approved, we have roughly 26,000 residents in the city from what I saw from the voting and everything. In that 2.5 mile radius, small radius, and this is just in South Perry, that'd be roughly a 5% increase in the city, which is great for residentials if that's what we want. But I'm more inclined to ask, is there a gatekeeper within the city in an office or something that advises the P&Z or this council on, hey, we've got this going on and this going on, type of thing? And really, that's what I wanted to address with you, Mayor, in the city, is to educate not just me, and there's a lot of citizens that have asked the question that I'm aware of, but basically that's where I'm at. I'm happy. I'm going to stay for the whole meeting afterwards, or if you need my contact information, get with me.
It would be well if you could leave your contact information, and we'll get back with you and bring you up to speed on what we're doing. A real quick answer for you was that we approved a comprehensive plan that will be part of our 26 goals and objectives, which is, we've had a comprehensive plan 5 years ago, and that was in conjunction with the county and the cities, the 3 cities.
Yes,
we feel like we need a far more comprehensive plan that's focused just on Perry and its industrial, commercial, as residential growth. And so we will get that information to you if you'll give Ms. Warren or Ms. Johnson your contact information.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address Mayor and Council this evening? Thank you. Item 4 is items for review and discussion. Item 4A is the Office of the City Manager. 4A1 is the 2025 Goals and Objectives Revisited. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mayor. As you can all see, there is an item on the agenda this evening, 4B, where the mayor is going to present his recommended 2026 goals and objectives to you. We thought it'd be best to kind of wrap up, if you will, the 2025 goals and objectives prior to the mayor, again, presenting his 2026 ones. It honestly feels like just yesterday we went through these. I think it was this past July. We actually gave you all an update as to where we stand with a number of these goals and objectives heading into the fall. I think generally we were possibly overly ambitious on some of these goals and objectives for 2025. They were very complex, significant capital projects that simply took a lot longer to complete or working towards completion than we thought they would. So we did not make as much headway into the goals and objectives for 25. And I think thinking about the process that we went through and looking at realistic goals and objectives for 26, I do think what the mayor is providing to you all this evening are a lot more reasonable and actionable and achievable, if you will. So just, again, taking you through the 2025 goals and objectives. Do you have a clicker? Oh, I'm supposed to be down there. Just next page. If you could just click it for me, it'd be great. Thank you. You can see there's the 10 goals and objectives. You're very familiar with all these projects. We have been working on most of these for multiple years now. Next page. This is the big one. This is probably the most significant project the city will ever complete, is the new A.H. Harris Water Reclamation Facility. Again, you're all very familiar with this project. It is making significant progress out there relative to construction. You can see that some of the time frames have been shifted a little bit later. I know the mayor was really pushing for completion in December of this year, get some clean water running through it. Just unable to get there in December. You can see clean water testing will be February 2026, full commissioning in May. We will be staffing and beginning training at that facility in February. And you will all see, as part of the mid-year budget adjustment, a request for funding for that staffing and for operations of that facility. So again, look out for that. Next, please. The primary trunk line to serve the new wastewater treatment facility, we're calling it the Saddle Creek line these days. It's been kind of a moving target as we work through the project. You can see that phase 1 is under construction. If you're driving down the parkway and you look to the right, you see where it's been cleared and you see some work taking place over there. That is that line going through that area. The actual main component going down Saddle Creek, we anticipate that actually starting in January, so this month. There is an item going to you all tomorrow evening in your regular council meeting that would essentially authorize moving forward with that project in agreeing to the GMP amount. A.H. Harris Force Main, that is the component between the regional pump station and the actual plant, basically collecting sewage and then pumping it into the facility. That is under construction as well, 30% complete. We're working through some things with Purdue on that to hopefully save some costs and further the project on a quicker time frame. So we have discussions with them coming up next week on that. And then, of course, the East Regional Pump Station, which is kind of the linchpin to this whole thing. If you're driving down Saddle Creek Road, kind of where it almost intersects with 247 Spur, and you see where they've cleared a large area out there, that's where that pump station will be located. And that is generally under construction. The clearing has started, and we anticipate, again, with your approval tomorrow evening, moving forward with construction. Next slide, please. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
I'd like to ask a question about that. Those two pieces you just mentioned, the outfalls and stuff, those are critical to the Harris plant, right?
Absolutely.
So now the construction says January. So is that anticipated that the completion of that's going to match up with this May date when Harris is assumed to be functional as well?
That's correct.
It is. Okay. Thank you.
We're pushing for a symbiotic opening. Probably not the best term, but I'll come up with.
Synchronized.
Synchronized, even better word. Fantastic. One of the projects that was completed, as you're very aware, is the improvement at Swift Street and Commerce Street. That was a GDOT project. We've gotten feedback, both positive and negative on that. It appears to be working thus far. Very good project, and we appreciate the state helping us with that. Next slide. Sadie Heights is another one that has seemed to drug on for a while now. We are, I think, at a point where we should begin construction on phase 1 soon. You all did award that component of that project. We have been held up because of the telecommunication companies. There are multiple fiber providers, power, all that sort of thing on that project going through the project area. And we have different franchise agreements with each of those relative to who was responsible for moving it and all that sort of thing. So we've had to work through some things with that. We anticipate those being completed, those relocations being completed soon. You can see there, we should start in February, and it's a 90-day completion period. So expected May 2026 completion. And we are also in negotiations with the property owner for phase 2, commonly called the Big Dig. That's the big pond that would retain water. Next slide. Commodore Drive extension. The right-of-way has been set. It's engineered, and legal is working on right-of-way acquisitions. I do apologize that 80% is not correct. That is a typo, so please disregard that. But there is substantive progress being made on acquisitions with that. I didn't know, Ms. Newby, if you wanted to add anything on that. Fantastic. Yes, sir.
How many properties do we need to complete that? How many properties are there involved in the acquisition? I mean, is it 10 or 15?
Would defer to Ms. Newby on that one.
We have a line list, but I don't have it with me. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can get that information to you.
Well, I'm just curious. I mean, it's a lot of properties, and I'd be interested to know how far along we are, you know.
We'll get something back to you on that.
Thank you.
Next slide. Bear Branch is another one that seems to have gone on for a while now. I know you all have essentially approved the entire project. We ran into some issues with construction in the Georgia Power right-of-way this time, and there were significant negotiations back and forth with Georgia Power in them allowing us to actually complete the project within their right-of-way. That has been worked through. We anticipate, again, completion with that in June 26.
And is that critical, or is that a piece that the new plant was going to handle in terms of sewage getting to it? Or is that still Sadie Heights system? I mean, not Sadie Heights, Saturn.
I'm not sure of the greater basin for that particular area. The primary impetus for the improvements were runtime and capacity of the line associated with that pump station. Essentially, when you get to about 18 hours of runtime per day in a pump station, you know you have to do something, either upgrade it, replace it, something like that. And I believe lately it has been running 21, 22 hours. So it's one of our longest running pump stations, so we have to do something with that. And when you upgrade the pump station, you had to upgrade the line in order to handle the additional capacity. So that's what that is. You know, we got to a point where if it rained or something like that, it would basically be running all the time. And that incurs a lot of maintenance issues and costs. And, you know, it could lead to sewer spills. So you had to do something with that one. So that was the primary impetus on that.
Mr. Smith, haven't we had some issues with that pump station before? Not just running more than 18 hours a day.
It's been a significant issue for the past couple of years. Yeah. Are you talking about the issues recently with some of the spills?
Yes.
A lot of that we think is due to the pressures from the bypass pump that are being placed on the main, and that the pressures may be set too high. I think with PSI, it gets kind of technical. But essentially the pressures feeding that line were too high and it was causing breaks in the line, and that has been adjusted, so we're hoping that that alleviates any further issues prior to completion of the project.
Thank you.
The water sewer rate study, or it's commonly known as the Raft-Tellis study, very good process for the city to go through with a very good product in the end. You can see that the CIP was completed, and then, of course, the sewer connection fee was implemented, and the city started collecting on that sewer connection fee January 1. And Mr. Worthington has something coming to you all tomorrow night relative to that and establishing an account for those funds. Very good project. This was the emergency backup generator for their Tucker Road water facility. As you'll see in the mayor's goals, as he is about to discuss, and I think that's kind of hit home for us with the recent issues with Helene and then the snowstorm this past year. Weather emergencies, natural disasters, that sort of thing are an issue and will continue to be an issue. And as a city manager, I have significant concerns about where we are relative to our ability to respond to those. This is a key component of that. So the backup generator for that water facility to keep it operating should power fail. And y'all approved this. It's been ordered. It's one of those deals where it was like 36-week delivery time or something on the equipment before it can be installed. So we're just waiting on the equipment to be delivered and installed.
I'd be interested to know, because I'm just unfamiliar, do our other water treatment plants, other places, do they already have backup? So this is just completing that.
Pretty much all of our water and sewer infrastructure that needs backup generators has backup generators.
Okay.
When we were going through the construction of the Tucker Road facility, we were sitting there looking at, like, I think at that time, a $750,000 cost or something like that. And we elected at that point in time to actually remove that from the scope of work for some reason. So now we're coming back and putting it back in. The PTV access, this is something that's been discussed for a number of years now. There was a general framework in place to move forward with that. The property owner kind of had that outlined in a proposal that actually went to you all. You all will recall that it was denied, and the property owner is in the process of reassessing what they want to do with that property. So that project remains on hold. We have made significant progress relative to the East Perry Regional Park. This will be a large destination park. It is SPLOST funded, the acquisition portion. A property has been identified, and the city is currently in negotiations with that property owner. And then there have been some initial access concepts completed, that sort of thing. So there is progress being made on that, and we hope to be able to share that with you all very soon.
Could you elaborate on the funding for that? Please.
It's SPLOST. It's a countywide SPLOST project.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So is this like collaboration with Houston County?
Mhm.
It is.
Thank you.
Just kind of an overall dashboard there. That's pretty much it for the 2025 updates. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have, or at least try to answer any questions you might have.
On the last slide, it was SPLOST funded. Is that out of the Houston County pot, or is it the City of Perry pot? I know there's like 4 pots, right?
Yes, sir. It's out of the countywide project pot.
Okay.
It's not out of the county pot. The county designates county-wide projects. There's basically, the county has a pot, each one of the cities has a pot.
Right.
And then there's a 5th pot that all of the cities in the county come to agreement that this is gonna benefit everybody in the county, and it's funded that way. So,
Kind of like the Cultural Arts Center and those sorts of projects.
that type of project.
So that 5th pot is where the funding's coming from for this?
It's already been approved by the voters, and so the way the county's paying it out on a monthly basis, and so that will be how we service the debt on that, will be through that funding. Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
As Mr. Smith indicated, we had some pretty monumental goals last year, and so we've taken a hard look and saying, you know, what do we really think that we can accomplish? Do you have a slide for this? Good. So we went back and looked at things that we thought we really needed to focus on this year and get some things completed, and some of the stuff that this group has talked about as we have moved forward. So you can see that we've broken it down into 6 different areas, and what we're looking for this evening is your concurrence or have time to look at it and have your concurrence tomorrow, these are the most important things that we really ought to be focused on in 2026. Under infrastructure, I would expect the successful commission and integration and operation of the A. Harris facility. As Robert indicated, that's to be online in May, and it's my expectation that that comes to fruition. The second thing is we've had a lot of discussion around water requirements throughout the city. We feel like that it's time to have a complete citywide water master plan to guide our future system improvements. Much of our water in some of the outlying areas has been supplied by the county. We've been informed by the county they probably will not be able to supply as much water as they have in the past. So we think that we really need to take a hard look at how do you provide that in the city, and how do you pay for it, and those type things. So before we move much further, we need to have that master plan in place. I would expect the completion of phase 1 and 2 of Sadie Heights Water Management Plan. That is critical, and I think that will be accomplished in 2026. You saw the force main that goes down Saddle Creek. That was put in because we had difficulty with the state putting in a gravity flow line coming out of Ivy Glen. The state has finally agreed to the plans that we had for those gravity flow easements, both coming from the St. Frank Satterfield plant as well as from Ivy Glen. We think it's critical to go ahead and acquire those easements for future expansion of that plan. It's basically will be critical long term to connect that gravity line to that force main that's being put in on Saddle Creek. So those are the 4 infrastructure or utility goals that we have in place at this point in time. Next will be our park, recreation, and quality of life elements. The first one is finalize the land purchase for the East Perry Destination Park. We do have a conversation later on this week with the landowner to see if we can come to consensus on the value of that property and move that program forward. The second one is completion of phase 2 of Legacy Park to expand the amenities for residents and visitors. That's one that has been stalled for a lengthy period. We think that we need to go ahead and finalize that and get that small piece of that park completed this year. Sir?
Asking Commissioner, Councilman Peterson if that was his.
And then the third one is transportation and mobility. You heard Robert talking about finalizing the acquisition of rights-of-way for the Commodore Drive to support future roadway improvements. This is critical because if we don't purchase this property at this point in time, or at least purchase the right-of-ways, much of that property will be built on, and it will be impossible to build that road in the future. And that road is a future project, not something that I would anticipate that we're going to be doing the next day or so. Next heading is planning and growth management. Again, as we discussed earlier this evening, we feel it is critical that we complete a comprehensive plan for the city of Perry. We do not think that the comprehensive plan that has been done by the county in conjunction with the 3 municipalities is granular enough to really guide us on where we need to go in the future. So this body approved the funding last meeting for a comprehensive plan for the city of Perry, and we'll be moving forward on that over the next couple of months. One of the expectations I personally have is I would like to see a finalization of the redevelopment plan for city-owned surplus properties in historic downtown Perry. We have two parcels, or two combined parcels. One is the 700 block that the city owns, and the other is the Northside Drive area that we have around the event center. And I would like for us to come together and have some type of redevelopment plan in place for that property so that we can move forward with that. Next item is public safety and preparedness. As Robert alluded to, one of the concerns that he has as city manager and I have as mayor, having experienced what many of the cities through southeast Georgia went through because of Hurricane Helene, I think it's critical that we get ourselves prepared and put a continuity plan in place that covers all of the city departments. And what would we do if something like that were to happen in Perry? And if you'll remember, at 4 o'clock in the morning, that was supposed to hit Perry. Fortunately, it did not. But talking with other mayors throughout southeast Georgia, it is unbelievable the devastation that that storm caused and the effects it's having on each and every one of those communities at this time. The last thing is community identity. I think we need to strengthen the city of Perry's brand value and visibility throughout the community. There's been things that have gone on over the last year that I think has diminished the brand value of the city, and we've had some comments from citizens about that. So I think we as a council need to be aware of that, and we need to think of things working through our communications department on how we project the positive things that this city is doing in support of its citizens. So those are the things that we have put together as mayor and staff, and looking for your comments, questions, or concerns. And if you feel like there's something more important than those items, I would like to have those recommended as well.
Mayor, when you say visibility there on the last one of community identity, I agree with that objective. Are we talking town halls? Are we talking public forums?
A number
Okay.
of different issues.
Okay, gotcha. So we're looking at a comprehensive plan to put what we're doing out there in front of the public more.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
I agree with Councilman Jones. I like the sound of more town halls also, and more back and forth with our constituents. Open feedback.
Okay. Good.
I might just add a couple questions here on the talking about a water master plan. Who actually does that plan? Does that get contracted out with?
It would be contracted out. We've got a couple of people we're talking with right now. It'll go to bid, or we'll ask for a request for proposal from people that are expert in that will look at our program and then tell us how we can service those areas. And so we're also meeting with the county to really understand what their willingness is, and their ability to supply.
And I was going to say, was there a reluctance to supply anymore? Was that due to their ability to provide it, or they just don't want to do it anymore?
No, I think it's their system it's in our service delivery area, and you have to go back and look at the history, because the county was developing those areas before Perry moved into those areas. So much of the infrastructure there belongs to the county at this point in time.
It makes me think, because I'd looked at the 26 budget, and we were buying over $600,000 of water for them, I guess. That was in the plan. So will those residences and businesses that have been drawing off that water, will they continue to provide that? And it made me think, how how many territories or homes or whatever are on really literally county water? I know they pay through us, but is that a big?
It's mixed, and to be perfectly honest, I do not have the actual number, and we can get you a list of the different, but also the county buys water from us too. So it goes both ways, that where they don't have service, then
Yeah.
they master meter through us, and then they pay us. So that's why we think it's critical that we get a master plan to truly understand, you know, where the water is. And because if you look in the southwest portion of the city, they have agreed to supply us for 400 more homes, but they tell us that's the limit of their capacity. And so, you know, it's all over, and I think we just need to have a discussion with them and have an understanding of how do we supply water in the future.
That'd be great.
It's good that the county got that new 1.5 million gallon tank, soon to be up and running, so that, we have that option, but I'd
But
rather,
it's up in Bon Air, so I don't think it's gonna help us a whole lot.
Well,
So,
regardless, I would rather provide our own water, but it's nice to know that, they might be willing. Of course, on the other hand, they might charge more to help pay for that, so.
it's always the case, somebody's gotta pay for it. Other questions?
I just have one other quick one. Completion phase 2 of Legacy Park, expansion amenities, et cetera. Is that ball sort of in Mr. Coates' court?
No, I wouldn't think that
I
would.
mean, him overseeing a lot of park stuff, I know.
No, sir, that's not. We have received what I think is basically the final design from Keck and Wood on that, and we should have something to you all soon on that.
I have a question. I'd like to go on record that as the city continues to grow, and most of y'all know I mentioned about transit, that's something that we need to look into. As transportation is kind of, and most of us out there driving on the highway, we know that transportation is getting kind of tight and moving. So as our citizens get older and they continue to drive, and so we need to try to figure out a way going forward how we can get a transit to support, to encourage and to that, because we don't need to wait till we get push come to shove that we got to do something. That's kind of like, as we talk about the objective, let's kind of like put that on record that it's something that we're going to consider, or we can go forward and start taking care of.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. King. Ms. Newby, on this, we need concurrence to move forward, or we need a vote tomorrow night? Okay. Do we have concurrence to move this list forward with any adjustments that you would recommend? Okay.
Can we still discuss this, though?
Yeah, you
In
can.
detail, from tomorrow going forward?
Yes.
Okay, yes, you have my
We'll
concurrence.
get you, additional information that you need. This was just our attempt at putting out these things that we think that are critical to the city's, moving forward.
And this is not static, it's fluid, like it can be amended and adjusted. and
This
so
one was
forth.
amended. You saw the ATV thing. It didn't work out, so we put it on hold. I mean, there's always things that come up. During this year, we pivoted several times on projects that became to us that we felt were far more important, that we moved into that list. And so, no, this is not a list cut in stone. Other questions? Well, thank you. We'll bring this for your consideration tomorrow night. Item 4C is the Community Development Department, excuse me. 4C1 is consideration of revisions to the ordinance of 2022-16, which addresses separate water meters. Mr. Duffy?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Happy New Year. I just wanted to begin a discussion on one specific ordinance that we have that's come up as potentially an area of improvement for us. So it's, as mentioned, this is referring to ordinance 2022-15, which we passed in March of 2022. The ordinance has 3 sections which basically identify that all developments of different varieties must have single water meters, and that includes buildings such as commercial developments that serve multiple tenants. And really what we've seen just in the past year, I would say, we're seeing different types of developments that don't necessarily fit the template that the ordinance establishes. And it's the feeling of the community development department that we really don't want to be in a role where we're dictating things like lease terms between landlords and tenants by requiring every single tenant have its own water meter. So I just wanted to present you with that situation. I do have a proposed solution, which would basically be to allow exceptions to this ordinance by adding another letter. I know you have a copy of the ordinance in your packets, but a proposed solution would be to add an additional letter D, in this case, to the ordinance, allowing us to approve exceptions to that ordinance should a request be made in writing identifying why. That reasons why we might consider allowing exceptions to this would be something like rehabilitation of an existing building. We are running into this with the Rite Aid that's being remodeled right now on Washington, 1325 Washington. I know it came up with the Chalet Lofts building as well, which is really our first mixed-use building here in town. So we're seeing some different types of projects that don't necessarily fit all commercial, all single tenant, all residential, etc. So reasons to consider this would be rehabilitation of an existing building, unique tenant build-out arrangements, or potential other reasons. We would request a developer provide us a written request explaining why they would want to do that. Then we would leave that up to the chief building official, who would check with ESG, our third-party contractor, and provided there were no service disruptions associated with different management and accounting for the water flowing to a building, then under those terms we would seek to approve that request at the staff level. My understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, from back in 2022, but I believe that this ordinance was drafted as a technique to streamline the billing process, just to have single meters at all places receiving water. But you can imagine a building like the Chalet Lofts, similar buildings might have things like water utilities built into the rent, and then applied across the tenant base. But the way the ordinance is drafted at the moment does not allow us that flexibility. So this is really our goal at tweaking this a little bit to make it easier for folks to use and set up different types of buildings.
Questions, council members? Yes, sir.
So if a small apartment complex is being built, instead of each apartment having its own meter, then this would all be like the Chalet Lofts. There would be one meter that would cover the entire thing, and the owner or the landlord would basically build everyone's water and sewer into their monthly bill, correct?
Well, the proposed solution does not mandate that anyone do it any one particular way.
Yeah.
So if they wish to do it that way, that would legally be an option through this pathway. The current ordinance does say for multifamily developments of 7 or more units, those may be served with the master water meter. In the event of the master water meter, subunit water meters can be furnished, installed, owned, and managed by the property owner. So for that type of project, the ordinance is somewhat flexible.
Yeah. My real question is this: what does this do to our new connection fee? In other words, if there were 6 apartments, say, in a multi-family complex, would that normally be 6 connections, or is there 1 connection that the complex is charged?
If they,
Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
sure, so if under the current ordinance, if they build a 6 apartment complex, they'd have to put in 6 meters right now. So they'd pay 6 times the connection fee for whatever size they're putting in. What
Yes.
this gives them the flexibility to do is put in 1 larger master meter, pay 1 connection fee instead of 6. Now, revenue-wise, I think it'd probably be fairly revenue neutral for the city, because if you're putting in 1 master meter, it's gonna be larger, and we charge a higher connection fee for those larger meters. But I think it just gives more flexibility to the owners or
Okay,
the
yeah,
builders.
that gets at my question, thanks. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Duffy, looking at the current ordinance, so it's not going to change bullet A, B, or C. It's just going to add D in case of a rehab or build out. So currently up to 6 would be, as you stated, bullet A says up to 6 is separate water meters. B, 7 or more is a master meter. May be served with a master water meter. That's up to the developer's discretion.
Correct.
That won't be changed, and C won't be changed, commercial developments.
That's correct.
Okay.
I do have some drafted language. I did want to discuss this through with council as a body before coming forward with the language, but I'd be glad to read kind of our first stab at this, and we can adjust accordingly as needed. But regarding a potential letter D, we drafted exceptions to the above listed separate water meter requirements may be granted at the discretion of the chief building official following receipt of a written request outlining unique circumstances relating to a development. Such provisions may include rehabilitation of an existing building, unique tenant build-out arrangements, or potential other reasons outlined in the written request. So our building official would, working with ESG, make the determination on does a different water meter layout actually affect the integrity of the project.
Thank you.
Sure.
So, Ms. Newby, we would need a new resolution, would we not?
You would need a code amendment drafted.
Okay.
This was just Mr. Duffy wanting to bring to council's attention a situation where we can make a code amendment to allow some more flexibility within our development community when there are unique circumstances where a master meter may not be the best solution.
No.
And so this was just meant to bring it to your attention so that we could have a discussion, and then at your direction, move forward with bringing forward a proposed code amendment.
That's what I thought, okay.
Yes, sir.
So just curious, in the case of the chalet lofts, I mean, we have commercial and residential there. Is that served, if you know off the top of your head, is that served by master meter, and then the separate lofts are
I believe it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So do we have concurrence to bring forward a code amendment to allow this? Okay.
It's a good, interesting point Mr. Moody brought up. I wanted to ask about that. In a place like the Chalet Lofts, you do have the apartments on the second level.
Mm-hmm.
So in theory, 1 master meter could cover those. I guess it does in this case anyway. But the commercial, and there are several commercial entities.
Right.
Would they all be separate connections, or?
So based on the current ordinance, each of those tenant spaces would be required to have its own meter. So they would work separately than the residential section, which would be considered multifamily.
But in a case like that with the commercial, I mean, would the proposal also include 1 master meter for all of the commercial renters, and then their water sewer would be built into their rent, just like the residential, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So it would enable equal flexibility with different types of uses.
Okay. Good. We'll move forward. We'll Look
Thank you.
forward to that change.
Thank you, sir.
4D is the Perry Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. 4D1 is a proposal on an outdoor distribution rack for visitors' material. Ms. Turpin?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing me to come back tonight. Happy New Year. I just wanted to let you guys know that we do have our new 2026 destination guide for Perry. You do have a copy in front of you for you to peruse through in your free time. But I'm coming back tonight to follow up on a discussion that we had last year about the request to put an exterior destination guide dispenser somewhere outside of this building for the general public to be able to get these brochures during non-operational hours when City Hall is closed and therefore our Welcome Center is closed, or for those who may not actually physically make it into our building but may still want to get our resources. Whenever I came last time, I did just have kind of a concept, but we did go ahead and purchase a bin, which you can see here. It is a refurbished newspaper bin. We've been using it at pop-ups, so when we've been going to the farmers market and different festivals and events, we take it with us, and people have received it really well. They have fun opening it and pulling things out of it, especially the kids. But I wanted to show you guys what this concept looks like, and then also just kind of share with you some of the observations that we've made. We do see a lot more visitation in downtown Perry in the evenings now with the increase of restaurants and nightlife that we have. And unfortunately, our doors do close at 5 o'clock. Additionally, more and more people are coming on the weekends when we are closed. And so I do feel that having these resources available to people 24/7 would be helpful. With Visit Perry, we do not discriminate on who we advertise in terms of local restaurants, local businesses, our hotels, and things to do. And then also one observation that we have made is that as we see new development with hotels, especially our two newest ones, a lot of them do have brand restrictions on what they are allowed to put out to their guests. So while we are very excited about these new properties coming in, we face a lot of challenges in getting these visitor guides into visitors' hands, even when they are in Perry, because a lot of these hotels do have brands that prohibit them from putting our brochure racks in their lobbies or our destination guides on their front counters. And so this would be one extra area that we would be able to tell our hotel guests, if you come downtown, grab a guide. It's going to tell you about our festivals and events, our restaurants, our retail shops, and other things that they can enjoy while they are here. We do make it a mission to send these visitor guides all over the state. Annually, on average, for the past 2 years, we've distributed over 10,000 copies of these visitor guides. So we do make every effort to get these into people's hands. But this is one area that we really do feel we could do better, and that's making sure that the visitor who just happens to be walking by our business when we're not open can still grab something. I did also want to share with you guys just a very, very brief overview about our visitor guide. In talking with peers throughout the destination marketing organization world, a lot of our peers do outsource this project, and they can spend upwards of $45,000 a year in printing a resource guide like this. We designed this entirely in-house. We print it locally in Perry. So we have a lot of passion in this publication, and we really do want people to read it. So we welcome any feedback that you guys might have, any thoughts or concerns about placement, anything that we might be able to address tonight, but we appreciate the ability to come back and make this request again.
Where exactly will they be placed?
So personally, I would love to see it placed. We only have one, and one would be plenty. I would love to see it placed on any of the exterior doors of this building. That would be my first and foremost request. Which of the 4 doors? I'll take any. You point at a door and I'll put it there. If for some reason City Hall is not approved, we would be open to placing it at the Perry Event Center, since there is a potential that we would be relocating to that facility at some point in the future. But we do feel like, since this is where our facility is housed at the moment, that it does make the most sense to have it here. And this is a very accessible part of downtown. But when it comes to the placement outside, beggars can't be choosers. We will literally take any door that you guys would be willing to let us have. I will also say it's not a permanent structure. So if we place it outside and for some reason there's an obstruction complaint or any type of needing to change it, I can pick that up and put it in my van and move it very easily. It's not a permanent structure that gets drilled into the ground or requires a team of public works to come out and move it. So we would be very flexible with feedback if we tried a temporary thing. Let's place it here and see what the feedback is. To me, it is a very low-risk request.
Yes, sir.
I think it's a great idea. I'm surprised that you only want, you stopped at one. I mean,
Well,
I'd like to see more than just one.
tell me how many and I'll order them.
Yeah,
Well, let's just see how successful the first, I'm sorry. Let's just see how successful the first
Sure.
one is, and if you find that it gets emptied rather quickly, maybe we can go with 2, 3, however many you need.
Yeah, I would, sounds like a good idea, but I thought we ought to get one out at the fairgrounds as well.
Oh, I would love to put one out at the fairgrounds, and I appreciate that. I definitely will bring that up to them. Yes. They do allow us to put stuff inside of their administration office, but to the same problem, when that door is closed, all of our resources are now locked out. So, yeah, that definitely would be worth investigating as well. Thank you.
I have one question for you.
Yes.
Is that you said distribute all over the state of Georgia?
Yes, sir.
Now, what about the, up and down the interstate, they have certain rest areas. Are we able to put it in there? Or how would you think about that?
Yes, sir. So right now what we do is we distribute them at the 9 state of Georgia visitor centers. So we work very closely with our state partner, and they distribute it. They get the highest volume. Unfortunately, just across the board, visitation at traditional visitor centers, even like our own, is dropping. More people are going to online resources, or they want to stop at places like Buc-ee's or, those types of destination stops. However, the state travel centers continue to perform very strongly because they do have other resources. Sometimes they have RV dump stations or bathrooms on site, or they have a significant amount of inventory of travel resources. But one thing that we are exploring in 2026 is where you can actually pay to partner with out-of-state travel, I say agencies, I'm sure there's a better word for it, who will put your publications in visitor centers along certain corridors, and I-75 would definitely be the corridor of choice for us. So that is something that I don't believe Visit Perry has done in the past, but with the resources that we're saving and doing a lot of this work in-house, I definitely think it's something we can accomplish in 26, and we have identified many states along the I-75 corridor that we want to make sure our materials are getting into. And we do, I don't know if you all have received our wall calendars yet, you should have gotten those. But we do also go to travel shows outside of the state. So we have multiple travel shows in Florida this year. We went to Kentucky last year. We're trying to find and identify places that we can go to strategically to put things in visitors' hands.
Other questions or concerns? So where do you propose that she place this?
Wherever you think.
Wherever Ms. Turpin thinks would get the most bang for her buck.
Well, one of the things I would say is that is there any way we can find out which door have more traffic? You know what I mean? Because that would be more than place that, because we know we got all 4 corners to come in. You know what I mean? So which one will have more traffic coming in? I think that'll be the more better where you want to put it at.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously this one would probably have the highest visibility. However, I do think this one probably has the largest, off the top of my head, overhang for like protection, especially if it's raining and someone wants to stop and grab something, then they can kind of peruse underneath it without feeling rushed. The only counterpart to that is that door is locked. But whatever door you guys want, and then we can always reassess and move it if we need to.
If I may. Firstly, really nice product.
Thank you.
And kudos to you and your team for putting that together in-house. I do know that stuff can be very expensive, and printing it locally and all that's fantastic.
Thank you.
Relative to the boxes, administration would recommend a couple of things on this. The first would be if they want to place it at the event center, that it be located in that front porch area, where there's currently a bulletin board. I think y'all put some materials and things there already.
We haven't, but somehow our stuff ended up there, so I'm not sure.
That was the magic of the economic development team, possibly. But nice there. And then if you were to locate it here at City Hall, I would not recommend one of the kind of primary faces, with the historical integrity of the building and stuff. I think that would kind of mar the look of the building. However, administration would be supportive of the kind of inlet here, like you were talking about. I think that's fairly visible from kind of the primary intersection here downtown.
Yeah.
It's easily accessible to your office. So if it does not impede ADA accessibility or something like that, locating the box outside there, I think would be
Sure.
preferable downtown.
As far as the historical integrity, we have that little library out here on Carroll Street, and I've always thought that was, a great idea for that location. I respectfully disagree with Mr. Smith's view on how it would look. I think that's a great location facing Carroll Street, but that's just, but to your point, Mr. Smith, well, I don't want it to get too cluttered looking either on our town square. So,
Ian, that's fine with me.
On Ball Street.
Me too.
Okay. Do we need a vote on that, Mrs. Newby, tomorrow night, or just concurrence with her recommendation? Concurrence, you're voting yes, and so we'll just do it tomorrow night, okay? We'll bring that forward tomorrow night.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Item 4E is the Finance Department. 4E1 is the monthly financial report. Mr. Worthington.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and council, on the dais in front of you should be a copy of this report. If not, let me know. I think I have one more over here. That report that's in front of you is an attempt by the Finance and Administration Department together to create a more digestible and user-friendly financial report to get to you guys every month. The report focuses on the main operating funds of the city and just, like I said, attempts to give you a more digestible way to look into the finances of the city. My plan would be to kind of present it this month, get some feedback from y'all on any changes that you might want to see, and then start providing this to you all once a month. The first 3 pages focus on the general fund, as that's the largest operating fund and main fund of the city. I broke it out into 3 separate pages. All of the other pages are 1 fund per page. So this first page, what you're going to see is the revenues for FY26 of the general fund. You're going to see what the current FY26 budget is, what was actually collected or spent through November. That's the last full month when I was developing this report that we had. What percentage of the budget has either been collected or spent, and then for the general fund, also what an estimate would be through the month that I'm reporting. With each of these funds, what I've done is also put a section for what I've called variances or notes. What I want to do there is just give a little bit of narrative to anything that stands out to me as the finance director on why, is something over budget or under budget, and just give a little bit of sort of narrative to that. So if you see on the revenues for on that first page for the general fund, what I've put for the notes here is that first line, your taxes, we've already collected 95% of our taxes through the year, but we're only 5 months into the year, so you would expect to maybe be 42% or so. But with taxes in the general fund, the main line is property taxes, and all the property taxes are collected in 1 month for the city. So that's why you would expect to be maybe at 83%. We're at 95%. The reason for that is we budgeted $11.559 million in property taxes. As you know, we did not roll back the millage rate this year, so actual collections, which have already been reported in this report as of November, are $13.109 million. So that's why we're at 95% of the budgeted collection and not 83 or 42%. And then on the bottom there, I just have a nice little pie chart that shows you sort of visually what the budgeted revenues for the general fund are. Flipping on to page 2, the expenses are what we've got here of the general fund. These are broken down as they are in the budget ordinance that you all pass by function. Nothing really jumps out to me there. As you can see, we're at 43% expended through November, whereas you'd expect to be at about 42%. So in my mind, that's kind of right on schedule. Page 3 is the last page that's dedicated to the general fund. What I wanted to do here with this report, or with this page, is kind of give some historical context on where we are with the general fund. So your first column is going to be your 24 actuals. Your second column is going to be your 25 actuals. The third column is what we budgeted for the current fiscal year. And then that fourth final column is where we stand currently with the report or with the month that's being reported. What you would do with this report is just be able to look back and say, hey, the Department of Human Resources has a $4 million budget. In 25, they were at 4.3. In 24, they were at 3.8. So they're kind of on track at 1.69 million through November. So it's just sort of historical context on this report. Moving on to page 4. The next 2 pages, page 4 and 5, are our other major operating governmental funds. We have 2 of them. The first is the Fire Protection Fund. For these other smaller major operating funds, I just did one chart that shows both the revenue and expenses. You've got your 26 budget, what's been collected through November or spent through November, and then the percent that's been collected or spent through November. With the fire protection fee, the note that I put on there is we are slightly under collection. We've collected 41% through November, whereas we'd expect to be at around 43%. We're monitoring that, as you know, since these are collected monthly. As more houses come online, we actually catch up and collect more revenue towards the end of the year than we do at the beginning of the year. So it could be that we catch up, but staff is monitoring it, and there could be a mid-year budget adjustment that's necessary on that revenue line item. Excuse me. Next fund is the Hotel Motel Tax Fund. This one is probably the wonkiest looking chart that you're going to see in the November report. The reason for that is we did some major changes to how we account for a portion of the hotel motel tax for the current fiscal year. When we passed the budget for FY26, we assumed our, at the time, current way of accounting for the general purpose portion of the hotel motel tax fund. As you know, or you may know, there's a certain portion called the general purpose piece of the hotel motel tax that can be spent on anything that a city is allowed to legally spend money on. Previously, we've actually accounted for the expenses of that general purpose tax within the hotel motel fund. So the expenses were there, the revenues were there, everything matched up. Staff made an accounting change where we are actually just transferring the general purpose piece of the tax over to the general fund every month and then paying for those expenses there. I think it makes more sense because your general fund is supposed to account for all your general expenses of the city, right? Well, if this is a general purpose expense of the city, that's really where that expense needs to be. So we just move the revenue over to match it. That's why if you look at like the Department of Economic Development was previously budgeted and spent out of the hotel motel tax fund. That's why you'll see a $132,000 budget there. Well, there's 0 expenditures through November because we are now accounting for those over in the general fund. All of that will be adjusted in the mid-year budget. So after the mid-year budget is passed, assuming you all agree with it and pass it, those expenditures will actually show in the general fund, and your hotel motel tax fund chart is going to look a lot better, going to look a lot less wonky with 0 expenditures in there. Next fund we're looking at is the water fund. On this one, I did put a note in here. So the water fund has some really large capital expenses going on right now, that being the East Regional Force Main and Pump Station, and obviously the $50 million wastewater treatment facility. I took the expenses for those major capital items out of here because the budget for those items do not show up in the operating budget. Capital items are budgeted on a per project basis, not a per year basis. So if I include those in here, it looks like we're, if I included them, I think it looked like we were spent 13 million of the 14 million that's budgeted, when in reality, that's just the expenses are accounted for budgetarily somewhere else other than this chart. I think there is a budget to actual report in your packet at a later item that actually does show where we stand on those capital expenditures for the year. Final report we've got in here is the gas fund. We are at 52% collection in the gas fund. Actually, I think there's one more after the gas fund. There is, I'm sorry. So we're at 52% collection in the gas fund. However, you'd kind of expect that. We're in the winter months, so we're collecting a lot of money for that gas where people are heating right now. We'll slow down on collection when the weather warms back up and we'll get back to a percentage that's closer to what you would expect on a monthly basis. Solid Waste Fund, had a couple of notes on this one. The solid waste user fee collections, or the charges for services line item, is at 39%. That's because when we built the budget for FY26, we had assumed there was going to be a 10% increase in the solid waste collection fee. However, you all may remember, as part of the final fee schedule, we actually reduced that to 3%. So we're not collecting a 10% increase. We're only collecting a 3% increase on that fee. This is why we're only at 39% and not 43%. Other financing sources, you'll look, we're at 483% of the budgeted revenue for other financing sources. Two reasons for that. Number one is we actually received lease financing in the amount of $207,000. That was for a piece of equipment that was bought in the previous year. So the expenses and the revenue just aren't lining up. That's just an accounting issue that you're seeing there. The other item is when we received that truck, that was a knuckle boom truck that was $207,000. We sold the old one for $50,000, and we don't budget for one-time miscellaneous revenue like that. So that's $50,000 in cash that came in that we had not budgeted for. Both of these items, or I guess all three of these items, will be accounted for in the mid-year budget that's coming y'all's way, I believe, at the next meeting. And now we really are at the last fund, Stormwater Fund. Everything's pretty much on track. I don't see any real issues, nothing to note in there. So with that being said, this was an attempt by the Finance and Administration Department to get you guys a more digestible report. The goal and moving forward, what we will be doing is providing this to you monthly. However, I wanted to do it in a work session the first time, see if there's any information in here that you'd like to get on a monthly basis. You don't have to tell me tonight. As you guys are looking through this, feel free to let administration or me know. If there's hey, I'd really like a little more detail on this, or you presented it this way and I'd like to see this way instead. This can be a living document. It's for you all so that staff is giving you the information that you need. So if there's anything in here that you don't see, or there's anything that you do see that you can go, nah, that's not really useful to me, we can always remove it and replace it with something else. But moving forward, we will be getting you something similar to this on a monthly basis.
Questions, council members? Yes, sir.
I appreciate the efforts to streamline this and everything, and to have a monthly report, because I think that'll really be important to see it. But this is still like drinking out of the fire hydrant to hear it in about 10 minutes, but sure. That's not your fault. So this bears more looking at, and
100%.
I am sure at least I'll have some questions coming back, but not tonight. I do have one question, though, and just off the top of your head, I know I could go back and add all the numbers, but what are you estimating right now as the total city budget?
Off the top of my head, I believe we're in the $40 to $50 million range, but I don't want to give you a hard number because I'm not looking at it right now.
Is it closer to 40 or closer to 50?
I could add all these up real quick.
I'm just asking for a ballpark anyway.
Probably closer to 50, but
okay.
I'll give you a solid number.
Well, I can add the numbers. That's no problem. Thank you, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate this, your efforts here. Mr. Gilmore's monthly reports were comprehensive, and they were sometimes hard to read, his monthly reports, but they were good. They had a lot of information. But this is a lot easier to read. So I have some questions, but I'll save those questions. But as far as this monthly finance report, will we be receiving these on a monthly basis?
Yes, the goal would be at the first meeting of each month.
Okay.
Not necessarily present it every time like I just did, but it will be on the dais for you, and obviously emailed out as well. So
thank you.
Yes, sir.
If I may. Excellent job, Mr. Worthington, to you and your staff on this. As you all alluded to, I know you have been inundated in the past by various reports that essentially came to you as a running table of data, and not really a whole lot of analysis, not really digestible. We are essentially, at this point in time, at least in my opinion, starting with a clean slate. So I would like for all of you to be thinking on a broader scale as well. Certainly the financial report and stuff is very important, you know, that we keep our minds wrapped around that. But also be thinking about what other sorts of reports and data and things like that you would like to receive on a regular basis. Is there some sort of operational report that you're interested in? I know you receive a number of reports from community development relative to new developments and permitting and that sort of stuff. I think that might want to continue. You know, as you're out and about as an elected official, what do y'all get hit up on? You know, what sort of stuff do you feel like you want to have at the top of your mind and provided to you on a regular basis so you stay on top of things? And, you know, formatting wise and stuff, we want it to be simple. I think we want to move more in a dashboard, you know, sort of format, but just, you know, broader scope, citywide, what sort of reports do you want to see? And I'd like for you all to be thinking about that. And if we can, pick this back up at the next work session and kind of get started. And I don't want you to be inundated with reports, because I know you have been in the past. But what would be helpful to you all as elected officials moving forward? So please be thinking about that.
Very good job. Really appreciate the information. Item 4F is the Communications Department. 4F1 is the City of Perry recognition categories and criteria. Ms. Clark?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This proposed proclamation and recognition policy was created to bring clarity and consistency to how the city evaluates recognition requests. As requests have been increasing, we saw a need for a clear framework to ensure fairness, transparency, and alignment with city values. The policy defines two forms of recognition: proclamations for occasions of broad community significance and letters of recognition for meaningful efforts with a more limited scope. This helps preserve the significance of the proclamation while still allowing the city to recognize and acknowledge positive contributions in our community. This is not meant to limit recognition, but to protect its integrity and set clear expectations for both the city and the public. So we're presenting this policy to you tonight for your feedback and discussion.
Questions, council, relative to breaking it out in proclamations and also letters of recognition. So Ms. Clark is correct. We're continually getting requests from all over the United States for proclamations, and we feel like those should be reserved for our community, the things that are important that's going on here, recognition of our citizens. And so we put this policy together, and there are other times that letters of recognition would suffice. And so we felt like it was critical to actually document this policy so we were able to tell people why and why we think these are important. So, questions?
Is this new, or is this?
This would be brand new, sir.
As far as the differences between a letter of recognition and a proclamation?
I don't think we've ever had a letter of recognition.
Yes, sir.
Because I don't remember.
As far as we know, we have not. The reason for the alternate example, as I said, or recognition, is to still, if there was an impact, you know, a good positive impact that we want to recognize, instead of doing a proclamation, we would do a letter of recognition.
Would the mayor still present a letter of recommendation as he does with letters or proclamations?
Yes, sir, we could do that.
Down in front of the dais?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But I would ask you to take some time, review the proposal, and then we will discuss that again. But we want to get something in your hands. Again, we're trying to put things in policy matters rather than just practice matters. And so,
Mayor Walker, I don't remember seeing this on tomorrow night's agenda as far as we make a.
Yeah, this is the first that you'll see it, but we'll probably discuss it at our next work session.
Okay, good.
After you've had time to review it.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or concerns? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Item 5 are council member items. Mr. Peterson, if we can hold yours to the end. Mr. Jones? Dr. Albritton, anything for you? Mr. Moody?
None for me, sir.
Mr. King? Okay. Now, Mr. Peterson, you had requested a discussion of our water sewer provision, so I will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the opportunity. I was just thinking how great it, especially in light of all this news about Venezuela and stuff, how great it is to live in a country where we know nothing of what it's like to be run by a dictator and have literally no freedoms, no property rights. And we live in this great country where we can discuss without fear of, our chief of police coming after me after I mention a few of these things tonight or something like that. And of note, literally this Christmas, December 25th, was the 35th anniversary of Mikhail Gorbachev dismantling the Soviet Union. And for the next 10 years, there was incredible freedom in that country. Unfortunately, Mr. Putin has ruined that, and it's become more mafia-driven and stuff. But anyway, we don't live there, and it's just great to be here. Also want to just thank the mayor and Mr. Smith for the opportunity to bring these issues. Ever since we began to talk about connection fees and getting a Raftelis report, which we got, I've just been thinking about it. I think the thing that caught my mind was we're borrowing $50 million. That's a pretty big number. And so I just began to look into that because I thought, $50 million is just it's just the principal. GFA and others charge interest on that, and we have to pay all that back too. So it made me just kind of look into that. It made me go back in past council meetings and stuff and look at things that were discussed. I was kind of looking for the origin of that. And it ultimately led me back to I guess would have been the third agenda of 2022. On February 15th, 2022, I found that there were three, I thought, totally direction-setting resolutions that were passed by the council. One of those resolutions really put some definition to the service area boundaries that we have in our city. Another resolution was a policy regarding using annexation for growth. And it made me think, we have a huge service area, but the city is about half of it in terms of its territory. A lot of it is in the county. And if we're going to grow, it's going to be through annexation. So there's that. But the thing that caught my attention was a resolution that was approving a master sewer plan by the engineering firm GWES. And I'm sure that was mentioned, but somewhere along the line, but I'd never even seen that. And so, and maybe you all, this is all familiar terms to you all, and but this is a master plan for the entire city and probably beyond, which I totally applaud, by the way. But when I looked at the numbers of what that would cost, the entire plan that was at least expressed in that particular resolution was almost $122 million. So it all of a sudden made $50 million seem like, well, that's just peanuts. So, and that's just the principle. That's not the interest that, is a part of that plan. So that was just kind of an eye-opening thing to think we have a plan. It really helps me to understand, I think, when we have a proposal for a bond or a project or something like that, it's helpful to know that this is part of a big plan. The wastewater treatment plan, the Harris plant, is just a huge, everything falls or rises with the completion of that because we have to treat that sewage. And so all that to say, if I just throw that number out to begin to try to wrap your minds around $122 million for that. That was item one of actually 4 things I wanted to highlight or express concerns on. The second thing was the cost itself of the Harris plant. And I really appreciate Mr. Worthington's help on this, because every time I asked a question, he answered it, and every time I said I didn't understand, he explained it. But, you know, as I looked at that and we worked on it together, we are borrowing 2 loans out of GFA, and we have 3 bond issues. And the total of all of that comes out to, and I'm including principal and interest at this point, that right there is 110, almost $111 million. So that is money that we have borrowed and we will be paying back. I just kind of divided that by 30, and I got that we'll be paying back about $3.6 million every year for the next 30 years to cover that debt. So that was interesting to me. The other thing was, you know, it's one thing to build a plant, it's another thing to operate it, and I kept thinking, my goodness, everything done to date has been through the Satterfield wastewater treatment plant, and now we have a brand new one that's coming online, and Satterfield has handled all the customers so far, so we have a wastewater treatment plant at this point coming online that has great capacity, but we don't have any customers for it yet. But I kind of did some division, and I, you know, I really appreciate Mr. Smith coming up with some numbers. You know, he shared with me that the estimation on the operating expenses, you know, the purchase is $111 million, but the operations of that plant are $728,000 a year. There's a lot of breakdowns on this, but we don't need to go into that. So that is an amount that it will take, whether we have 2 customers or 200 customers or 2,000 customers. And I just kind of looked at that. You know, we say that our average rate of water sewer is $981 per ERU, basically. That's the rate out there. So, you know, if you do some math, you know, being a math teacher, I like to ask questions. If you know, if that thing cost us $728,000 a year, and every person that taps into it is going to pay $981, how many customers do we need to cover the annual operating expense? So I noticed that when you do that division, it comes out to about 742 customers. If we had 742 customers that showed up tomorrow, their annual payment would cover the operating expense of that. Regretfully, they're not lined up tonight, but hopefully they will be soon. So that was just another thing for me to be aware of. It's not that we're just trying to pay for the build-out. We're also paying, you know, for the operations of that until we have enough ratepayers to cover that base. So that was the second thing. A third thing that I began to think about was, you know, what is our goal? In the Raftella study, I found some of the discussions about, well, we're going to have a third of the payment done by these payers and 2/3 done by these payers, and the switching of how much sewage can be switched from the Satterfield plant over to the Harris plant. I just found some of that confusing, so I began to kind of just take a step back and look at Perry and think to myself, we have a city and we are providing water and sewer to that city. That doesn't matter where it comes from, where they're located really, whether they're west of I-4, whether they're out in the Far East. But the bottom line is we have expenses to provide our city with water and sewer service, and they are ratepayers, and so they are providing the revenue to do that. So I began to look at the balance there between what does it cost for us to provide all of that service to our citizens, our ratepayers, and what are we taking in from their rates. And you know, I found several different variations. I tried to estimate my own costs and my own revenue out of that, and I got a positive number on that. When I looked at our FY '26 budget, our expenses were 13.5 million, and our revenues were 12.7 million. So that was a deficit. Then Mr. Worthington sent me even a more detailed thing, and that, that said that our expenses were roughly 14 million against 13 million in revenue. So again, there's kind of a delta there of $1 million or more dollars. And I began to think, well, okay, what do we do about that? Because we have these things we have to pay for, and they're good-sized numbers, and we're going to be doing it for quite a long time. So, and that is a discussion. And all of these, I would say, I hope are discussions. I don't have any solutions for any of this tonight, and I think there's enough wisdom on our staff and our council to pull together to work this through, to figure out how do we do this and protect our ratepayers at the same time. Part of that Raftella study caught my attention as well, because if there is a positive difference between cost and revenue, then that's really great for us. But if the difference is we're spending more than we're taking in, we have to figure out how do we cover that difference. I took a look at the rates, and I went back to 2022 when this resolution was passed. And by the way, I will say, and actually talking to the mayor about this, who has more history of this place than anybody I know, showed me some different things where this has all been an evolving process of putting in place sewer. So it's not a new concept so much. This is the first place where I could see where it was a comprehensive master sewer plan for the city. So that's why it caught my attention. But, the rates back in 2022 were $795 a year for water and sewer only. $795, that's base, water, and sewer. So $795, keep that in mind. Fast forward to today, and the average rate is $981 a year. So that's a 23% increase. If you take it from here, though, and Raftella has proposed some rate increases. These are proposed by Raftella, not approved or enacted by this council. But that rate goes from $981 in the next 3 to 4 years up to $1,517. That would be an additional 55% in terms of rate increases. And if you take it from 22 up to January 1 of 29, that would come out to be a 91% increase in rates. So all of these decisions could have an impact on ratepayers and how we figure out how to do that. So that is a third item of concern. So just seeing that there's a master plan for $122 million to see that we're trying to pay off construction costs as well as operating costs with the associated rates that may or may not be filled, part of that. Those are some of the things that I hope in the future we can kind of discuss and figure out, what do we do with all these big numbers that are out there? A fourth thing, and kind of a final thing here, is I also began to think, well, if we're spending this much just in our water sewer fund and we're borrowing this much money just for that, what is our overall debt picture? And again, Mr. Worthington was super helpful and sent me a summary of all of the bonds, all of the GFA funds, all of the leased loans that we have as a city. And that was an interesting picture that I added up all of the principal amounts that we have borrowed, and to date, as far as I can figure out based on his numbers, that is almost $139 million. That's just the principal. I also inquired, well, what would it, over time, what do we pay for all of that in interest? And it's a tricky question because different bonds and different GFA phones have different rates that they're charging us. But on the $139 million of principal, that equates to $66 million of interest. So our overall debt obligation is $205 million. So if Mr. Worthington is correct in saying our annual budget is in the $50 million range, we have an annual obligation 4 times that, or we have an obligation of 4 times that, and that gets paid off over 30 years. But that equates right there to $6,800,000 a year, if we just consider everything to be like an amortized loan. I know there's some variations in that have been explained to me several times. I still don't understand, but that's okay. But anyway, again, that's just a big number that our city is obligated to, and it's a good thing for us to consider, to discuss, and to find some solutions. It really becomes an interesting problem. So I had a couple proposals on this to go forward, and I would like to know council's thought on that. And I know in future work sessions we can discuss these things. We have a retreat coming up. I hope it doesn't have to wait that long, but these were a couple things I thought this would really help me that I would propose. Number one would be to have a briefing on this GWES sewer master plan for Perry, so we can see, how much of it has been done, and a lot has been done, but how much is left, and where is it, and what is it going to cost? Those numbers I mentioned about the $122 million for the whole project, those were 2022 numbers. We all know expenses have probably gone up. So, but that would be, I think, a helpful thing for the council to be able to discuss, and here would be just a briefing on that sewer master plan. And of course, now we're talking about a master water plan too. That's going to only add to what that might be. A second thing is, I think it would be a good thing to continue to discuss, more accurately, if possible, as we get into the next year here. What is our ongoing cost versus the ongoing revenue? Because that will tell us what do we do with that difference. And so that would be one thing I think would be valuable to discuss, and guard that so that we know what we're looking at. One of the things I found in looking at a third thing, and I've only got 2 more after this, but a third thing that I found a little confusing in going through all of our discussions in Martellus is, how do we define what an ERU is? Because it seems like somewhere along the line, and I couldn't find it to document it, but it seemed like we were saying an ERU is 285 gallons a day per user. But and if we did that, we have a new capacity of 2.5 million gallons. Well, if it's, if a ratepayer uses 285 gallons a day, we have 8,772 ERUs to add to that capacity. That's a lot. That's great. And some of that, those won't all be residences. Some of those will be businesses. Some will be industries. Hopefully we'll get a lot of industries out of that, because that helps out a lot, especially with the connection fees. But, the thing that I noticed when we calculate the average rate of a ratepayer, it's based on 5,000 gallons a month. And so I kind of worked with that, and that kind of equates to 167, or that kind of works back to 167 gallons a day. So that adds even more. The 285 equates to 8,550 gallons a day. That's what a ratepayer would use if it's 285 gallons a day, 5,550. But our number that we're using right now for average ratepayers is 5,000 gallons a day. So that comes out to be 167, 5,000 a month, 167 a day. That means we'd have over 14,000 ERUs to sort of, build into the new capacity of the Harris plant. But then looking at the Raftelis report, it estimated the monthly use of a user here as 3,700 gallons. And that, if you use that number per month, that's 123 gallons a day. And that would allow us to add 20,000 ERUs to the new plant. So I think that would be an important figure to at least settle, whatever the figure is. What is an ERU? How do we define what an ERU is? So that was a third kind of suggestion, a point of discussion. Fourth point of discussion is, once the coverage is, we have enough ratepayers, our revenue from ratepayers does it get accumulated into a fund like our connection fees would? Is it used for something else within the enterprise fund? That would be we use our connection fees, we've said, to repay the $50 million of principal from connection fees, but now we have these other fees, so we need to understand how that gets paid forward. And when coverage of the operating expenses are covered by ratepayers, additional monies that might be earned, what do we do with that money? This is something I found too. I find that with our water and sewer fund and just the whole enterprise thing, there are various places where you have to go to get information. I asked a couple of people, who is the point person on our water sewer? And, people seem to point their figure at different people. And so we have several entities in that. We've got GWS, who's planned out a $122 million project out here to supply all of this stuff. And then we have Mr. Worthington's, who's trying to figure out all the accounting and the borrowed money. And then we have ESG that's evidently managing all of the operations. And, the mayor knows a lot of stuff about this. So, and probably Mr. Duffy gets involved in this somehow. And I just thought, at some point, would it be beneficial to have a point person who would be accountable for that water fund rather than, feels like it's operating by committee to me. And may have been started that way years ago, but it's gotten so big and there's so many details of it now. Be good to have a champion or an expert that could be accountable for that. So that would be one thing. And then I just think, well, I'm not going to go through that one right now. I'm going to hold off on that last one. But these are just all, these are some ideas, and there's so much documentation and so much numbers. So I'm sort of hoping that with all of this, we can discuss these things. I don't have answers for all of them, but there are questions that come up in my mind. And in some of the answers, I can see there'd be a lot of alternative ways we can do it. And I just know we want to be best for our citizens. And again, I just want to say, kind of in closing this, I greatly appreciate the mayor's vision for our city, and I fully support that and our growth policies. I want to see that as much as anybody, and Mr. Smith and Mr. Worthington and other people I have asked have been nothing but accommodating to answer questions, to provide information. I was talking to one person about this, and they said, "Well, gee, you're digging into this stuff. Is there anything here that is going on like is happening up in Minnesota?" And I said, "Not in the least. Hadn't even been suggested." So I am absolutely convinced. We just have great people, and but these are great issues that I hope we as a council can dig into and work with the staff and, pay for our bills and protect our ratepayers and, go from there. So, Mayor, thank you for that time. And I do have a summary of some of the basic things that I have shared here. So I've got some copies I will pass out, and Ms. Warren has copies for all of the staff here and anybody who's here that would like one. But I'll just go ahead and pass these out, because I know this was just throwing around a lot of numbers, and so just so you all can see what I've tried to discuss here and what some of these issues are. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah. Or comments?
If I may add or comment very quickly, I am not a math teacher. I'm a history teacher, so lots of numbers overwhelm me, but that's okay. Going back to the mayor's vision for 26, one of the items on there is the water master plan, and I would assume how to pay for that and it being in that discussion. So I think that's a great opportunity to have this discussion expanded along with that discussion as well.
But, that was the purpose of the Rothschild study, because
Right.
you guys asked us to go out and get and we went and got the best that money could buy to do that. So I think you're pretty well have all the information on the Rothschild study that we have. So
Right.
I think your decision-making is going to be around how you want to pay for it. And the staff is looking at numerous different options that would pay for that plant and take the burden off the residents. And so we'll be coming forward with those recommendations.
I really appreciate the staff's efforts in doing that. We do have a great staff, and I'm very thankful for them. And I do hope, I want to be on record saying this, I do hope our response to paying these debts is not just rate increase, rate increase, rate increase, rate increase, rate increase. Because I think there are no, I don't think we all get this feedback. There are a number of constituents tired of that, frankly, and I know we can't always not raise rates, but the more ways we can look to mitigate that, I think will be very good for us and very good for our constituents.
I can assure you that's what the staff is doing. And Mr. Peterson, to assure you, I don't know where $9 billion are in Minnesota, but I can assure you that's not the case here in Perry, Georgia.
I never had a doubt.
That I think we've been transparent in this whole process, and like I say, this started back in 14 with Mayor Faircloth and the whole putting together a strategic plan and everything. So this is something that's just been evolving over the years, and I think that there's been a great deal of work put into it. So we will take this under advisement and look at how we move forward from here.
Yeah. And I don't know how much can be taken under advisement other than these are the issues to really discuss, and I appreciate that. And maybe I could just mention to Ms. Warren, maybe when we adjourn, if the staff and anyone here in the audience that would like one of those, she has some copies. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Moody?
Thank you, Mayor. You know me well, don't you? You can tell when something's on my mind. To Council Member Jones's point, as far as I agree that we cannot. I don't see how a rate increase year after year after year would be sustainable. It's just as I pointed out when the gentleman from Raftellus was making his presentation. I expressed my opinion that I didn't like the look of those rate increases. And looking at some of the numbers Councilman Peterson put out there as far as how much per year for the next several years, 91% rate increase, that's just that's unsustainable. I would like to thank you, Councilman Peterson, for digging into this. I've stated before, numbers are not my favorite thing. Accounting was not my favorite class in college. So thank you for digging into this and bringing this to our attention, and I look forward to many more discussions on all the points that you brought forward. Yes, sir.
Mr. Smith, any thoughts going forward from this?
No, just, thank you for your input, Mr. Peterson. I have your notes and things down here, and we will look into it, and we will get back with you all to discuss it more in depth.
Any other questions or comments?
Mayor, if I may, unrelated, I just want to thank the public's forbearance with me in my absence over the last few meetings. Regrettably, I had to take a leave of absence, but I'm back now and ready to go for the new year and excited about it. I know we have a lot of issues to tackle, and I'm looking forward to doing it with this group.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Okay. Mr. Smith, do you have anything additional for us this evening?
No, sir, I don't.
Okay. Ms. Newby, do you have anything for us this evening? Okay. Ms. Wharton? Okay. Mr. Worthington? No, sir. Mr. Duffy? No, sir. Mr. Coates?
Yes, Mayor and Council, I actually have 2 items for you tonight. The first one is, as you all well know, we're doing a capital improvement project over at Rosa Park, the 2 U10 soccer fields. We plan to have that wrapped up by mid-January, no later than the end of January, to start off the new year for our spring sports with soccer. The second one is our basketball program started tonight for Perry Leisure Services. This Wednesday, we'll be honored by Mercer University. The kids will be able to go out on the court and do the Pledge of Allegiance and the color guard presentation. And actually, kudos to the kids, because we actually had 95 kids registered from our basketball program. And this year, we will have almost 650 kids registered for our basketball program.
Thank you. Chief? Chief? Well, thank you for all the hard work over the weekend. You guys went way above, making sure that we take care of the people here in Perry. And so thank you to all the agencies that were involved. I know there was a large number of people, both citizens as well as agencies, that helped us. So we're glad with the outcome of that. So you guys have a great team. Thank you. Ms. White? Ms. Birdshaw? Ms. Clark, anything additional? Ms. Warren? Okay. Mayor items, I just remind you that our meetings are open to the public, and we encourage your interest and participation. Our next meeting will be tomorrow night with pre-council at 5 o'clock, at council at 6 o'clock. And tomorrow night will be our formal, inauguration of our council members that were voted in there, that are sitting up here, plus a new council member that will be joining us tomorrow night. So we look forward to that. We do have a requirement for an executive session for real estate, and at this time I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session. So moved. Second. All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. We are in executive session at this time.